Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the world famous podcast, Beating the Press. Myself, Ty, we've got Chris with us as well, and you might notice someone different, someone that doesn't look like Simpson or Andy, who was here during the Euros. We've got an actual referee, a real life referee for us. So no surprise. This episode is going to be about refereeing. We'll try to talk about everything. Obviously, VAR is going to be a part of it, and I'd imagine quite a large part of it. But we'll try and touch everything else. For everyone else who's listening and viewing, if you've not already done so, can you please give it a like, subscribe, because Chris always bollocks me, and this is, I can see his smile, so I was happy with that. So I will pass on to Chris to kick us off.
Well, how about you tell us how you know? It's your guest after all.
Yeah, that'd be really handy. Yeah. So I know Chris. I know Darius through playing. Darius is a new referee. I first met him as a referee in one of the games in Bradford, and then we played a couple of refs v managers games together. That was for charity. It was for the Bradford Burns unit, wasn't it? If I remember right.
So we've done it a few times. We've done it for Burns unit, obviously, with it in Bradford. We did it for Help for Heroes the first year. And if we eventually get to play it ever again because of COVID, we're going to do it for Andy's Man Club.
Yeah, no, so I mean, there's some great stuff he does behind. It's not just a referee, and he's always handy to nudge if I need a referee for my team. He always sorts me out.
Sunday league last second, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've known each other for a good few years, and he's even refed the final. You refed the final, didn't you? I think it was the Sunday Cup final a few years ago at Park Avenue. We lost the game, but I remember you refereeing.
I think you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a summer cup. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we've known each other for a while, so that's our relationship. I know he commented on one of our recent podcasts. He said it was really good, and I just thought, do you know what? We've not done a refereeing one. Do you fancy going on it? And he's like, yeah, go on then. and this is us now. This is where we are. Here we are.
Yeah. So just real quick, Darius, just with regards to how you started off with refereeing, obviously referees can be one man's best friend, one man's worst enemy. Was it really early on that you decided to be a referee, or was it something that you kind of like fell into?
Definitely fell into it. You will think I'm making this up, but it's the God's honest truth.
Yeah.
So basically, I went back to college when I was about 19, 20. And I was too old to play for any of the teams. You had to be under 19, and I was just outside of the bracket. So I could play in friendlies, but I couldn't play any of the competitive stuff. And then one week I was studying, they played on a Wednesday, and on the Tuesday afternoon, I was stood in the PE office.
Yeah. And
one of them was going, I ain't got a ref, what I'm going to do. And I turned around, famous last words, and went, I'll do it. What's the worst that can happen? It'd be all right. And I did it. And I hadn't genuinely, until that point, never even considered it in a million years. And then went and did the game the next day. Went all right, as in I enjoyed it. Mainly had a laugh. Next week, same thing happened. Can you do it again? I went, yeah, why not? What's worse that can happen? And then from there, the college, because I couldn't get anybody to do it, it's quite hard to get people on Wednesday afternoon. They were like, well, if we put you through your course, you basically pay us back by doing games. Will you do it? And I was like, yeah, why not? And that was in about the March time. Now, up to that point, I'd been the world's worst footballer. And then between March and the September, I think it was, or October, November time that my course was, I'd actually realised that being a big 6'4" lump, if I just one headers tackled and passed the ball that someone could play, I was all right-ish. But by that point, I'd started reffing, and the last time I played Sunday League was probably about the December that year. Last ever touch in Sunday League was giving the ball away that someone scored a last-minute winner for. Impressive. But yeah, from there, I've just been refereeing, and I probably enjoy it more than I ever enjoyed playing, if I'm honest.
So how old were you when you first refereed again?
I'd have been about 21, maybe 22, something like that. Early 20s.
Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest eye-opener that you realised when you started refereeing games as opposed to playing them?
I didn't realise how difficult it was to appease 22 plus people all at the same time. And I'd say that's the biggest. It took me the longest to work it out, and it's if someone could have told me from day one, you can't satisfy all the people all the time, it would have been the best lesson I could have had. But you learn to have the situations that what are happening, and as experience comes, then it doesn't get easier. But as in the same situation happens again, and you know how to deal with it and how not to deal with it, and probably appeasing 22 blokes, particularly on a Sunday morning when they might have had a heavy Saturday night, is an interesting concept to teach yourself. But you learn.
I've got a question for you, Darius. So say you're reffing a Sunday morning game and everyone's been on the lash on Saturday night. Is that more difficult than, say, doing a junior under 15s game with all the parents on the sideline losing their shit?
Like under 15 games to referee, under 15 games should be 9 times out of 10 very easy to referee, because the lads just want to play football. They're not at a point, they might argue with each other, but they're not at the point where they're going to start scrapping with each other. That comes later. But the parents are the problem. But you think about it, you look up to your parents as to what they do, and you've got a parent who's maybe never played the game at all, their only interest in watching football is what their son or daughter's doing. Yeah. And they're telling you what should and shouldn't be happening. And the kids, of course, listen to that, so that makes it harder. Sunday morning style, when people are hungover, typically that's in the games that are further down, you normally find, or they can play through it. But typically what you'll find is most of the time by half-time, those that are drunk are blowing. And they're not really a problem for your second half, or they don't have the energy to make that 5 yards to cause the damage. But it can get spicy, but just
for the listeners, can you tell us what a typical, like let's say a month would be like for you? Would you be refereeing juniors? Would you be refereeing Sunday League, or is it a mixture of both? Is it 11-a-side? Is it 5-a-side?
Yeah, so I've got promoted a couple of times, so now I'm going to pretend COVID isn't here, because that complicates matters a bit. Yeah. So we'll pretend COVID's not here, and we'll do a normal season. So typically, I referee Northern Premier League, and I'll line...
That's step 5, isn't it, that, yeah?
Step 3 and 4, I will line National League North and 4th official in the National League. So, and then there's reserve team football for Premier League and Football League mixed in amongst that, and academy games. But a typical month without COVID, there'd probably be 2 lines, 2 or 3 middles, and depending on your availability during the week, you might pick up some more academy games. That's changed a bit because of COVID, because there's less football and less stuff to do, so referees are more available. So, but probably when it comes back, hopefully next season, fingers crossed, football will be back to normal, and that'll be back to my week being wake up on a Saturday and go to football. And I still do Sundays when they need somebody. And I'll do, so if Ty was to ring me and say that I need someone for this game or something for junior teams, I'll help out friends in that. Typically, I am tired from the day before, and I don't really want to risk getting injured by doing it. But if anyone's short, I'll do help them. I'm not.
It's an interesting point you made, that and availability, because I go to you not just because you don't think you're a good ref, do you know what I mean? And I think you understand the game when you see, because I remember the first time you ref me, I don't think you'd remember it. I'd cleared the ball, the guy came through, but it was, and I'd gone out for a throw-in. It was a throw-in, but it was one of those where I've gone down and tried to make it into a foul. And you went over and looked at me, said, "I know what you're doing, get up." I was like, "I need to buy out here." So, do you know the bit you were just talking about there about helping out? And I think me going to you is just because you're a good ref, you know. And I know you're going to back up refs, but there's a lot of shit.
You realise I've already agreed to do the podcast?
No.
He's thinking about the next game.
No, I'm just saying that not everyone's like you, so there are, regardless of what we say, and you know, we want more referees in the game, there are still a lot of shit refs in the game. So, and you know, we'll talk about this on, because we could talk about it now, is is the issue. There's obviously a huge issue around referee retention, about numbers of referees to cover, especially lower level games, because referees don't want to be involved. Sunday leagues, and I know Bradford Sunday Alliance in the lower leagues, they sometimes struggle for a referee, and then you've got one of the managers having to. It just gets messy. Do you know what I mean? And it's not an answer I expect you to sort of have. The question I have, I expect you to have the answer to about what's the solution. I mean, we can get more referees put through courses. They'll do a couple of games and they'll think, well, this is not for me. I'm sacking it off. And then we've got the same cycle again, same vicious cycle. And I know county FAs and FAs have tried to do, and the FA have tried to do stuff to get referees involved and almost assigned to leagues, but it's just tough. We've even increased the amount of money they get paid for the games. I mean, they get 35 quid, which is it's a decent chunk of change, that, for a couple of hours work, especially, and it's not particularly hard at, at the level that they're going to be refereeing, and even that's not getting the referees to turn up. So there's obviously a bigger issue than that. So just from you, obviously you mentioned you don't mind sort of jumping in and helping out the odd Sunday game, but it's those numbers are low. What do you think is the solution? And I don't expect you to have the perfect answer, but in your head, if you had a magic wand, what do you think would work? How do you think we can get around it?
Right. I think about this quite a bit. So to be fair, I do have a sort of answer for you. It's a hypothetical answer.
Yeah.
There has to be an acceptance of the fact, if you're playing in the 3rd division of the Bradford Sunday Alliance, your referee is going to be Bradford Sunday Alliance 3rd division quality.
Yeah.
It's a fact. If I go back to when I first started refereeing, I was dreadful. Right? As in, stuff you're doing wrong, you're doing that. But everybody turns up and expects the referee to be perfect. The referees aren't perfect. We could go on about any amount of games in the Premier League you want. You can go World Cup final where Howard Webb's not had a view and not sent off. Who was it that?
De Jong, wasn't it? Nigel De Jong.
Yeah, Nigel De Jong's absolutely. I think it was Alonso.
Alonso, yeah.
Absolutely killed him. That's World Cup final. In theory, that's, to be fair, at the time, definitely world's best referee. And mistakes happen. But you have to accept that when you play lower down, there are going to be more mistakes. It's a fact. The players are worse. The refs are worse. It's a fact. Everyone expects perfection. When they don't get perfection, the reactions come. And when the reactions come, people, like, 35 quid is not to like be not to be like blinked at. You're going to want to take it, but you can stay in bed. You take Sunday Alliance. You can go. I can get 35 quid for being shouted at by Ty, or I can go referee 3 under 12 games and get 75, 80, 90 quid, whatever for it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that. You just have to deal with a few whinging parents. But that's the difference of why people will come off the adult games, because people expect too much from a system. We will talk about VAR, and none of us can agree on any decision that's made by VAR. So how do you expect the bloke down the park to be getting these decisions right when he's on his own, trying to watch for offsides and do everything? There's got to be more of an acceptance of things are going to go wrong. Yeah. And on the other side of things, refs sometimes probably need to go, I messed up there. I didn't get it right, which I don't think happens enough in the local parks. You make a mistake, just go, I gave it as I see it. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And hopefully that gets you through.
Just to let all our listeners and viewers know, there are other Sunday leagues in the country as well. We're just talking about Sunday Alliance because this is where we've got quite a bit of experience there. And obviously, me and Chris used to play up in the Teesside League as well. What was the Sunday league called there?
It was called the Teesside. It was actually called the Teesside League.
Yeah, I actually got my first ever sending off there. Yeah. I've only been sent off twice. One was like, last man. That's fair enough. But I was embarrassed at myself. I stamped on someone after, and I was fucking fuming. So that was bad. And I was just like, I couldn't even look at the referee.
Yeah.
As soon as you've done it, I felt embarrassed. You were playing in that game.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Yeah, like Ty, obviously we played together on a few teams. Like we played Sunday League together, we played Wayside League together, we played Northern League at a semi-professional standard. So we've seen the level of referees in the amateur game, and everything from like goals on a Tuesday night where you're playing five-a-side. So we've seen every type of referee, and it's always one where I felt sympathetic towards, because I was always the player that's getting hacked to the point where, you know, I've got the referee, almost like the referee on my side, and other teams are going mad with the referee. And I've always thought of it as a thankless task, especially Sunday league football, where you've not got the backup and you've not got the help of linesmen and other type of officials that can keep even the players, people off the pitch in control. Because, you know, like you say, you know, a lot of people like to bring the mates and they like to give the referee abuse. There's nothing better than it for some of them. But would you say education at a younger age? Like, 'cause for me, a lot of the problem that referees seem to face, it's not necessarily something that the referees tend to bring on themselves. You know, so is there any form of like education that, you know, maybe that the FA could bring in to help the referee out, just to give the players a bit more understanding and a bit of more empathy, sympathy towards referees?
I think there's stuff you can do. I think most of the problem, and VAR probably shows it quite well, is that it's quite a lot of the time it's not the referee's fault, it's the laws of the game's fault. So
I agree,
talk about handball, like talk about offside, as in both of those. The offside, it's about 12 pages long in the laws of the game, as opposed to the other ones being 3 or 4. As in the laws of the games make it very difficult. In terms of like what referees get, I was talking to my wife, and who'd been talking to one of her friends, and she said that her other half had said to her when they were talking about me being a ref, and said he grew up and he genuinely, when he was a kid, thought that the referee was like a pantomime villain. So everyone turns up as a pop at the ref, but everyone's in on the joke, and that's what you're doing. And that's what we do living. That's what people do. I used to do it when I was a kid. To be fair, I can still remember a very certain game going to watch Scarborough play where the referee had an absolute stinker. Right? I can still remember his name. I can remember the referee when Scarborough played Chelsea. And I'm still, those decisions, stuff stay with you. We're still human beings. It's what happens. Refs are always going to be the bad guy. And I think to say anything else I'd be kidding myself.
Do you think, just with rugby in mind, you know, it seems to come across with a much better reputation with regards to respect from players to referees than what football does. Why do you think why do you think that is in general?
I think that rugby isn't all the flowers that everybody says it is. As in, it's also got issues, and on the surface, it's a lot better. I think the fact that it is very much, you say a word to them and it costs you distance, like as in there. That's quite a lot of it, that it actually affects the games. I would probably say that the way rugby is played as well is, I don't know. So it's more of a team game. So in a team game situation, then you are letting your mates down. Mm-hmm. Now, if you get booked in football, then for dissent, it's cost you 12 quid. You're paying Ty's wages for a little bit. But if you get booked in rugby, you offer 10 minutes. And there is sin bin in there. And I would say that since that's come in, I'm quite proud of the fact that I haven't had to use it, because usually the threat of it enough is there. But I do, in terms of getting it to the point of with rugby, we are so far away from being able to play it the same way, such as swearing in football and rugby. If you try to bring that in football now, then Ty's getting his Christmas parties at the Ritz. There's no way you can do that in a county FA and not have enough money to build a 60,000 seater stadium. Just how the game works.
Sorry, can you just, Ty, I don't know whether you can do, can you explain the sin bin? Because for those of us that haven't had regular contact with the likes of the amateur game for a little bit of time, probably won't know that this is in existence.
5 years, I don't know why, but he's just gave it up.
I got injured, and then I decided, you know what, I like my Saturdays at home much more now.
I mean, my question to you was going to be about the sin bin. I mean, you can explain to everyone what the sin bin is, but I've played since restart, and during COVID, and I put this back to September, I've not seen many sin bins. Before, when it first came out, I thought it was used a lot, and I don't know if it's calmed down because people have realised you can't use it, or if COVID's just sort of, the referees have forgot that exists, you know what I mean? But yeah, so if you could just explain what the sin bin is and why you think it's calmed down.
Right, so to give it its official title, it's a temporary dismissal. Basically, it was brought in FA. It's brought in up to, I want to say, step 5. Step 5 and below. Then basically, if you got a caution for dissent, then you're spending 10 minutes temporarily dismissed. You don't get. I think you don't have to pay the admin fee for it.
There's no fine for it, is there? I mean, I don't work for County FA anymore, but yeah, you're right. There's no fine for it, but you do go off the pitch, don't you, for 10 minutes? So yeah, that's the. It's just a sort of. The only thing with it is when it first came out, I thought referees messed up in that if someone told the ref you're a cunt, they'd just sin bin him, whereas it should have been a red card. That, do you know what I mean? It was trying to get the right. Yeah, I just think there was. I mean, like you said, you get the lower level you playing at, you're going to get a lower level referee who might not understand it all. So just link that. Why do you think it's? Well, I've noticed a massive drop in sin bins since last September. I don't know if you've noticed the same, and if you do, why do you think it has dropped off?
To be fair, there's different elements to it. I think since COVID's come back, I think everyone is so sick of staring at their own 4 walls that the idea of not being able to play football is massively affecting behaviour. People just want to get out there and play football again. I've noticed that. The lads who are up here are quite easy to bring down with that. In terms of I think there's probably as much dissent as before. It's easier to manage now with a threat, but it's also harder to punish, in my opinion, because if you have a little pop at me from 30 yards away, I would bring you up, and like I did with that when you went down crying, I can say to you, get up, get on with it. Yeah. But now, if you do that one, I've got to work out, right, well, you're off for 10 minutes. If you're 2-1 up and you come back up 3-2, it's not your fault for having a pop at it. It's my fault for doing it. So you've got to make sure the more serious ones are always going to get punished as well, but the ones that would have been punished in the past possibly aren't. And it's kind of trying to strike that balance, because, to be fair, I've played in games where when everyone's whinging at the ref, it isn't fun. As in, you're just waiting for it to end because it's boring.
And it's another decision for the referee to make as well, isn't it? You've typically got your yellow card and your red card, and now you're implementing something else, and it's something else which you would effectively need to time as well, and keep an eye on that. So it's an additional thing. Just in relation to sorry, I forgot the name of it. I'm going to call it sin bin again. In relation to the sin bin, is it being trialled at lower level with the intention of potentially moving it onto a higher level, or do you think it'll just never be enforced in the pro game?
I want to say it'll get to the pro game, but I can't see it. As in, you imagine it's a World Cup final. Would they want Neymar off the pitch for 10 minutes of it?
It'd be good. It'd be fun to see it. Just him chomping at the bit, ready to go. Looking on the watch.
There'd be like a stopwatch up on where the scoreline is.
The crowd are counting down.
5, 4.
So yeah, I don't think it'll go higher. I think it's a good deterrent for in the lower leagues, in your Sunday leagues and what have you. But I don't think it'll go. I think it might go up for non-league, but I'm not. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I can see its benefits. I can see its disadvantages.
Just to wrap up this section on the sort of grassroots non-league stuff, just 2 points. Firstly, you say referees get stick. I played in that referees v managers, and the referees were the worst for it. You were absolutely nailing the referee, and that's true. The second point, just to finish off, what's your funniest thing or funniest moment in refereeing, grassroots, non-league, whatever level?
I had a feeling you were going to ask me this, and I thought about it, and it took me about 8 seconds to remember. And it was, I think I've been reffing about a year, 18 months, and I was reffing one of the midweek end of season games, basically what happened was keeper came out, gave away a penalty. One of the defenders picked this ball up, and when it was in Scarborough, so they've got pitches next to each other. Lads picked up the ball defender and kicked it easily clear over the next pitch. So I am literally walking over to book him. That's it. All I was going to do. And he goes, "What are you doing, you knobhead?" I went, and for a second, I didn't know. I didn't even say anything back. I was like, "Where's that come from?" He literally goes on a tirade, calls me a knobhead about 15 times. I send him off. Okay. After the game, one of my mates had come down to watch the game, and he was a ref. He'd been ref for longer. He was kind of mentoring me a bit. And he stood next to me, and he turns to him and he goes, Adam, what's he sent me off for? And I went, "Ask him." So he went, "What did he send me off for?" I went, "You called me a knobhead about 15 times. You can't send me off for that." At this point, he looks at Adam to go, "Tell him you can't send me off for that." And I'd never forget, Adam just walked off. Adam turned around and just walked off, shaking his head. But he always stick with me, that one.
With that in mind, I hate it, and this particular part on such a bad subject, but abuse. What have you ever suffered from any kind of abuse that's, I was going to say unwarranted? It's always unwarranted, but have you ever suffered from any kind of abuse from players? And if so, can you just give us an example?
To be fair, I'm 6'4".
Okay, you don't look 6'4".
So typically, to be fair, at no point have I ever felt unsafe on a football pitch. I know plenty of people who have been assaulted, which I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So I know plenty of people that have been assaulted. I don't understand it. I don't get it. There's like, it'd be the equivalent of your boss telling you off at work and you're giving them a slap. Like, you wouldn't do it. Like, there's no reason for it. If someone's given a penalty, you've lost a game of football. You've lost a game of football. Like, what I don't get why somebody would take it to violence. And to be fair, using my height as the example, that is part of the problem. Like, people try and intimidate refs to get the way. And don't get me wrong, everyone knows that's how the game's played. You're trying to get into the ref's head, you're trying to do stuff, but don't intimidate. And if you're going to go down that route, I still don't understand how that can be. Why you can have refs as young as 16 refereeing men's football getting assaulted by some big clubbing centre back who's just waiting for his 10 pints of Stella. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you could go to that point. And for me, if that's your mentality, I wouldn't want to play football with you or against you or referee you, obviously, either.
Yeah.
Don't understand it.
I've actually been on a pitch with a guy that gave away a penalty. And he was a pretty huge guy at the time. He gave away a penalty and the referee sent him off, gave a penalty. He proceeded to go to his car, opened up his boot, picked up a claw hammer and chased the referee around the pitch for, I'd say, about a good 30 seconds and then actually managed to pin him down. It was actually his own players that managed to get him off the referee. And I think it was a couple of weeks after that I stopped playing Sunday League altogether. It wasn't just that incident. It was like, it was getting too much. I was playing a lot of Saturday football, but yeah, refereeing that Sunday League and the abuse that I've experienced, that refs have, it's absolutely a thankless task.
And then, to be fair, you use that as an example. I would put money on the fact of that story would make the papers, like that kind of thing. Certainly nowadays, you would know about that by the time you're tuning in for Super Sunday in the afternoon. Everyone's read it on Facebook. Everyone knows about it. If you're reading that, why are you going to volunteer to referee in?
Yeah.
I say Teesside League and not Sunday Alliance for Ty's benefit.
Yeah, this was about I'd say this was about 10 to 15 years ago. So you're definitely right. Social media would have had a bit of a field day with this. I think it was banned for around about 6 months. Just going off that, social media. Do you get much? Do you see much along the lines of social media in the grassroots game, and does it affect anything?
I've had probably one, because I'm a referee. I've had the fact I'm a referee brought into arguments before when it's not relevant. Not had anything like that. I have had. You are certainly more accessible. It's only happened to me once, and to be fair, it was done well-natured. I will not name him, but if I describe him as crazy goalie in Bradford, Ty may be able to work out who I'm talking about. But I once sent him off for, I think it was for a handball or something. And that night I was having detailed conversations with him about why it was a red card, even though he didn't think it was, in the right way, to be fair. But you are certainly more accessible than I imagine you were not too long ago. And to be fair, on our referee system as well, it used to have your phone numbers on for the Premier League referees. And I always found that mad because anybody could have had that system and gone onto a system. So if somebody wanted to contact one of the Premier League referees, they could have known someone who's doing Sunday League football who just had access to the system and been able to get it, which is, I would imagine, why that's come off, to avoid those situations.
Just before I move on to VAR, my last one was my observation, my biggest pet hate around referees at the level I'm playing at now. It's referees not understanding and not giving a yellow card when a player stops a counter-attack. And I don't know if that's something, if the referee doesn't understand the moment in the game, or if it's something that they just don't think, it could just be a little clip. It doesn't have to be a nasty tackle. I don't know. And it's really frustrating, especially when it happens to your team, or if that player's already got a yellow card, or if it's early on in the game when that player could get a yellow card. And obviously, regardless of what level you want to play at, you want to get an advantage. And if that means a player gets sent off, but no one wants to be sent off. But if it means your team wins, it's part of the game. Your thoughts on that, and if you think refs at that level don't know it's stopping a counter attack, or they're just thinking it's not really a bad tackle, so I don't need to book it.
So just talking in terms of Sunday League, I'd say the moment you bring a card out for either side, you're public enemy number one. Like, as in, the players don't want it. As in, they want the serious stuff punishing. And that's kind of a technical breaking up a promising attack.
Yeah.
There are times when it needs to be done, and it's probably one of those things of, if you're talking and you're developing a referee, it's something that you do have to be wary of. But typically, if you're talking your standard, let's say top division or top, that standard Sunday League game where it's lads just enjoying themselves playing the game of football, typically they don't want the £12 fines going to county FA, which I think is a lot of the mentality of why referees don't do it as much at that level. I'll say there's been times when I haven't done it because it's reading the game. If you've got two sets of lads who are trying to play football and someone just clips someone accidentally, and it's a technical one, for me, there is a bit of a boundary there to doing it, and I will have used that in my working out what to do with it. But at the same time, if that's a cup final and it's them same two teams, every day of the week it's going to get done. For me, I think you've got to work out when's the right time and the wrong time to do a card.
So you've clearly been affected by this, because that was a very specific question.
No, it's because, I mean, but my frustration is I just don't think, I mean, I play at step 7 just below, so I mean it's all right. It's it's like just below sort of the league, and that's the team manage as well. But there's plenty of times when I'm sort of telling the referees, you've stopped a counter attack there. You're going to do something about that. You'll have a word. I'm like, well, that doesn't really mean it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's totally right. I think what he said is absolutely bang on, because, like you say, we both know that to let's say a Northern League player, I only know it's Northern League, where it's like semi-professional. You're not paying your own fines, so it is a case of you don't really care if you take a player down, you stop a counter attack, and the referee doesn't even think twice about giving you a yellow card. So yeah, I can definitely understand that. With your fines, you probably got a few lads that are maybe just coming out of college and stuff like that playing as well. So they
what I would say to that is, I mean, I've got no issue with the ref booking someone, but then not sending it in. I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? And I used to work for a county FA, and it was like, I'm like not really bothered. If they don't do it, who cares?
You're a grown man now, Ty. You can afford your bookings.
I've had refs in the last sort of 3-4 years where they've booked them and said, I'm not going to send it through. Do you know what I mean? It's fine. I don't care. Even if you're going to send someone off, don't not send someone off because you're worried about the fine. I want you to send them off because it's the right thing. If you don't send it through, I don't really give a shit. But in that moment, that's all I'm caring about. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's, if you want to create and have the best referees, get them making the right decisions for the actual what the game is. And if it means somehow getting into that financial overhead that's on, that they might be thinking about, let's get it out of the way. And I know the money goes there, and it's a big part of, County FA's money coming through to them, but it's probably another thing that he's looking at. We can make a big list of them. But yeah, I think we could talk about.
Can I just say, before we move on to the next bit, the referee that didn't send those cards in most certainly was not me. Not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah.
Any referees watching that are just starting, I would say just book them. Use your situation to its common sense purposes.
Yeah, Darius has got to be all politically correct. I know, and it's just the way it is. So yeah, I'm happy being a referee. Anyway, this is a subject that we really want to talk about. And the first bit's taken a bit longer than I thought, but it's absolutely fine. As is our way, we always go. We'll have a little chat about that. It's been age, but it's fine. So, VAR.
VAR and your thoughts.
Yeah.
Sum it up in 45 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. Okay. There's a few questions we've actually got, but I'm just trying to think. Do you think it's better for the game or not? I'll start with that.
Right. Yes. I think football needs VAR, but not probably in the way it's being done now, in my personal opinion.
Right. Okay. When you say it needs it and you say it not, what would you change? There's a lot of stuff. I'll explain my biggest frustration is the rules that were changed from the start of the season to now. So different teams will have been impacted with a handball rule, at the start of the season, but it's in the same, and they've just changed it as the season's gone, and the teams have gained an advantage over that, and as well as the offside stuff, which we'll talk about in a bit, is my biggest frustration. So what would you change as a referee? Say you were refereeing in the Premier League, to make your life easier and to not get the shit that no doubt you'd get on social media afterwards. What would you do?
Right. So I'm a cricket fan as well as football.
All right. Good.
Anybody that's been to a game of cricket, the best part of the day is when someone reviews the decision. It's class. The whole ground gets buzzing. Okay. Football needs VAR, right? Because there are opportunities when there are things that happen in a game that are wrong. Referees make wrong decisions. It could be a penalty for, penalty against, a goal, offside, onside, and all the rest of it. If you use the same system for working stuff out, because while people might not like the answers they're getting, then they're the correct answer. But make it so the manager has to review stuff, or the captain. And you'd have to work out how you do it, because otherwise, if you could stop counter-attacks doing it, there's ways around that and doing that. But the problem for me with stuff is somebody scores and you go, is the offside? And you're waiting for the offside. And I agree, it stops celebrations. But if in that same situation, so I don't remember if you remember the Nations League, Jesse Lingard scored and he got ruled out back for offside against Holland. And it's absolutely pencil close. As soon as it happened, I went, he's offside. But I didn't celebrate because I was waiting for VAR, because you knew it was there. But whereas the difference for that is, if he goes running off celebrating and I celebrate, and then I look back up at the screen and I see the Dutch manager going, review it. That's the excitement. That brings the excitement back into the game and the correct decision. Whereas at the moment, we're checking everything. And I don't like that. I wouldn't like to align with it, because they're not giving stuff, which then leads to corners and can lead to goals and stuff. If you put it to a cricket style review system, then people can then referee and line the game exactly how they do. And they weren't doing a bad job in the first place. And that would then bring the excitement in, which gets fans anti.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. This is when it first came out. So, and like you, I'm a big cricket fan as well. I thought 2 reviews per team. And it's almost like, when it's an LBW for the cricket fans, and if it's an umpire's call, you keep your review. So obviously, if you challenge it and you're right, you keep your review. Similar to that, so you get 2 reviews, and again, it's down to the manager who nudges the 4th official, who will say, as soon as that ball goes out of play, he's talking to the referee, and they'll stop the game. There's a review from thingy, and you know what's going on. Whereas everything else, you just continue. My only thing with the biggest thing at the moment with VAR is, and it's been going on, and it's really annoying for me. It's that clear and obvious. Do you know what I mean? Now that will always be subjective. Who is it clear and obvious to? So, we can have, 100 of us there. 50 will say clear, other will say, clear and obvious, other will say what. So you're never going to get that right. That needs to be removed because it gives people making shit decisions that opportunity to worm their way out of it. The other thing with VAR, apart from that, is the offside law, the whole shirt. I mean, I've spoken to Chris, but we've gone through this back and forth for ages, and I think the easiest way is just your boot. Whoever's foot is furthest, that's what you do. That's the last way you draw the line, not your arms and stuff.
Yeah, if you're leaning, that's fine. Your foot.
Fine. It's where your foot is. It's where your foot is. Whichever tip of your foot, bang, there you go. And you draw your lines on that. I think with the offside, there will always have to be a line because, it's just the way it is. But what I would say is if it's unbelievably tight, the advantage always goes to the attacker, like it did, previously. Advantage, it goes to the attacker, and that's where you're supposed to do it.
Do you think we're trying to be too perfect? Because I think I read a stat, something like before VAR got implemented, referees in the pro game were getting something like 97% of decisions right.
I wasn't, just for the record.
97% is ridiculously high, and we had a game that we loved, and I was all for VAR at the beginning, exactly as you explained, Darius, at the beginning. You said that it was going to be fun when the crowd gets G'd up because they're seeing that it's going to be challenged and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, because people were saying to me that it's going to ruin the game, it's going to ruin the game, and I argued at the exact point that you mentioned there, that if you imagine it's the last minute of extra time and a goal goes in, and it's for or against your team, you don't know which way it's going to come, and it's going to flash up on the board, and then you're going to be it's going to be hysteria. But then now I just completely give up with VAR. I've just completely give up until you've just mentioned something that I'd never thought of before, because I'm not a cricket fan, and obviously I went with you, Ty. I had a great time, but
it's just the game he went to as well. His first ever cricket game. It was probably the best ever World Cup. So West Indies against New Zealand at Old Trafford World Cup.
Yeah.
Where they did it in the last over, he should have just tapped it and was an idiot and slapped it down.
Yeah. So they were literally they were 9 down and they needed about 120, and Carlos Brathwaite had the innings of his life, and then he's trying to smash a 6 and he got caught in the boundary. And Chris couldn't understand how come there's a New Zealand fan sitting next to us and a West Indies fan as well, and everyone's getting on fine. I get, football's just shit. But this is
it was absolutely brilliant, and I've not really watched anything since then. He keeps on telling me to watch it, but just the review system that you spoke of there, that's the first time that I've heard something where I thought, yeah, this could actually be salvaged to a point where I can enjoy it again, because I don't know whether it's maybe a combination of the crowds not being in, everything that's happened over the last year, also being a Liverpool fan and we're not actually winning. I'm not enjoying my football at all, just because, like you said, you can't celebrate or anything like that. But I think, with the review system, that's a cracking idea. I want that in tomorrow.
See, the thing is, you still would have the same problems. Your example of you do it by somebody's boot, the players aren't going to change. The players are going to change what they're playing. So at the moment, it might be that just the shoulders off or what thing. People complain about the offside law and all the rest of it and how VAR uses it. To be fair, they get it right. Mm-hmm. As in, people don't like the fact it's right because it's that close. But it shows that people were content with the old system of you'd get the side camera, it'd be at a terrible angle, and you'd go, I think he was off, I thought he was on. And you have those conversations, which, by the way, have completely gone out of your pub conversations because now you've got it as things. You're always going to have that issue of something being right. But if you make it so there's an element of skill, I guess, in the manager can turn around and go, I want to review for that. And it needs to be, you can't go, I want to review for that goal. And then you check fouls, ball in and out, offsides, everything like that. It can go, I want to check that for this and have parameters to it.
Yeah.
And add, to be fair, the level that you're going to use VAR in is going to have theatrical TV and all the rest of it.
How would that work in, let's say, a sense where would you have a certain amount of time, like for the incident has passed? Because obviously teams would immediately take a throw-in or take a corner if it meant that the play couldn't be reviewed almost immediately. Would it have to be an instant decision by, let's say, a manager?
That's probably the first time anyone's brought that in. So we're sorting out this VAR review system together. To be fair, you're gonna have to do something. If there's a contentious issue, something happens. Realistically, most of the time that's going to be a goal or a penalty decision. You can hold the ball like they are doing now for the VAR checks.
Mm-hmm.
If you can have, to be fair, turn around to the captain and go, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
What do you want to do? You've got fourth official right next to him. Your time period is going to have to be relatively short. What I wouldn't do is stop the ball while it's in play, unless it's in the keeper's hand, because that's a very easy restart to manage.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd probably, just to get the extra buy-in from people, is as soon as that starts, have a clock on and make sure that gets added on to your time at the end.
Yeah.
Then people don't worry about the time curve. And it's just trying to buy the public's interest into it. But
I mean, the other thing with VAR is as much as we, it's never going to get rolled out to the non-league grassroots game, because it's just not going to be. So we're just going to have to worry that and manage that in the Premier League. And I think it's obviously because there's millions and billions around the world that watch it, and it affects so many people's lives, because people do, whether we like it, people do get emotionally involved in football. I think having that in place and people knowing where they stand, I think it would be so much better than what it is currently. I'm not knocking the referees, because I don't think it's not their fault. It's just the interpretation of how VAR's being used. Like, it'll be used differently here to what it is in the Champions League or in Italy. You see different decisions being made, and you hear commentators saying, "Oh, it's slightly different in Europe, so this is what's going to happen." I do think, though, the Champions League VAR system is a lot more smoother and quicker. The decisions are made really, like, pretty much instantaneous. They'll say VAR check, continue, bang. And I think it's just the speed of it that needs to be done quicker.
But the World Cup was done really well, wasn't it? When it was first done. Yeah. Why do you think? Why do you both think that there's such a difference, considering the amount of time that's passed since that World Cup? Surely they should have used that as an example of how to proceed.
Well, there'll be two reasons for it, really. Firstly, the guys who are using the VAR system, the referees that are doing it, will be better at it. They're going to get picked for their skills at doing it, because it is a different set of skills that you're doing for there. And also probably the guys who are doing the cameras, they'll also be quicker at doing it. But it's always going to take time out. And the thing is, us as fans don't want it. I think that's fairly... I think we want to go back to arguing over stuff, to be fair, but we don't want it. But the problem we've got is there's that much money at stake at the top of the game that you're never going to win that vote, because it's not the players voting for it, the referees voting for it. It's the people well above them that are making these decisions, and they need it. They need accuracy for the money that's coming into the clubs.
No, absolutely. The thing with VAR, and I spoke to loads of people about it. The biggest frustration is it's sucking the emotion out of the game. And we spoke about it before. It's your team scores a winner. If you score a goal, and normally every time you before pre-VAR, you'd score a goal, you'd look at the linesman to make sure he's not put his flag up, and it's down. You look at it and you can celebrate. And it's literally half a second. You might hold, you look at the linesman, but then he's celebrating. Now you're kind of celebrating, but you're kind of like thinking something's enough might happen here. Exactly, yeah. I mean, those ones that are slightly offside, you're thinking, you're kind of like, this might be off here. But it's just dragging that emotion out of it. And whether we like it or not, football, people love the game because of the emotional connection they've got with their club or national team. And it is a tribal sport. People are attached to clubs because of their grandparents and parents. So it's a big thing, and it's a huge part of it. So when people get that moment of celebration taken away, that's what pisses everyone off.
It's not only that as well. I've found myself ashamedly, when another team scores, I'm like, there could be an offside here. You know what I mean? You're like looking and you're like, please be an offside. And it's so wrong. But then again, I've corrected myself as well in the past, where I think there was an incident in the Liverpool game last night, and it was a tackle on by Eric Bailly on I want to say Phillips. Yeah, and it was at the time it looked like a penalty, but I watched it back, and I probably would say that it wasn't a penalty. It was a bit. He was a bit out of control, but it just went on for so long. And there's been a couple of instances like this where a couple of teams have scored against us, and it might have just been offside. And I'm like, just give them the goal, or just don't give the penalty. Like, even though it's going against my team, it's rumbled on for so long. I'm just like, it's unfair. Just give them the goal. Do you know what I mean? So, if you were refereeing in the Premier League, would you prefer to have VAR or would you not?
I prefer, to be fair, I'd prefer to have it. It's a safety net. The VAR, to be fair, when I'm refereeing, I'm not a football fan, I'm a referee. And to be fair, my job is to get that game to its end with not messing up, basically. And if I mess up, I've got that safety net that covers me. So 100% I'd want it, but as a football fan, I agree with all of the above. It's not going to go away. 100% never going to go away. But I think it can be adapted to suit all parties.
You made an interesting.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, just linked to that. I remember. You've probably seen it, Darius, as well, and you as well, Chris. I think it was last year. There was an Australian game where the referee was mic'd up. You can hear him, making his decisions. Pretty much like the cricket, you get the umpire speaking out loud. You can understand the decisions and what they're checking and what they're reviewing. Thoughts on that being rolled out alongside VAR? Do you reckon it'll make it easier? I think you'd get a lot more of a buy-in from fans if they can hear what the decisions are and why even if the decision is wrong, you just want a bit of accountability. And I'd say linked to another question on top of that is referees getting interviewed after the game. And I know they're just protected, but I don't know if that's a goer. But I think the first one would definitely help.
To be fair, the answer to both is probably very similar, so they're easy to do them two together. In terms of referees I'll answer the second one first. To be fair, referees being interviewed, this is how interesting the interview would be. Why did you give that? Because I thought this happened. Well, it didn't. This happened. I don't think it did. Okay, but that'd be it. That is the interview. It wouldn't be thing. All you're doing is you're just putting the bloke in stocks to go, this is what you've done. The referee can't turn around and go, I don't know why he's shouting at me because he missed an open goal in the first minute. It's not going to be a good interview. The interview would literally be, you've done this, haven't you? Yeah, I did. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it'd be humiliating. Yeah, it'd be humiliating. They'd bring out the pads and everything like that, and they'd point it out, and it would be humiliating.
There is no way of doing those interviews because you're not going to get him on and go, well, I think Michael Oliver gave a really good advantage at the weekend, I think it was. You're not going to get Michael Oliver on. Like, you don't want to watch that on your Monday Night Football of him going, well, I saw this here, I'm there, and I did that. It's not going to work. And to be fair, why would referees agree to do it when you're only going to get that first half of the interviews? It just, to me, it's an ongoing. It's just an excuse to put someone in stock. Secondly, in terms of that as well, the amount of times I've had conversations on a football pitch and I've said, well, I think it came off you. What do you mean you think? Well, I think it came off you. Were you supposed to know? But that's exactly what I'm saying. People pick apart your words. So that's that one.
The second bit, the one where you'd get mic'd up, you wouldn't be speaking to the players or something. All you'd be doing is just, whenever there's a decision like going on VAR, pretty much like cricket, when if you've got a challenge, explain your decisioning, why your reasoning why you've got to that conclusion. So you'll never have someone else fighting against you. You're basically just speaking in empty space, so you can say what you want, but it's just for people to understand what's going on. And I know what you're going to say. They would get hammered on Monday Night Football.
To be fair, I've done games where you've got the headsets on and you do stuff, and let me tell you, the conversation that goes on there is very, very boring. And it's very, very technical. So I don't think it would help because to be fair, we were talking about sin bins earlier and I said temporary dismissal. Okay. Now, if you're talking about decisions that are being made, let's say it's a tackle, he wouldn't go, he's gone in with 2 feet and smashed him. And the words would be, red 5 has completed a tackle. Both feet were up. There was excessive force behind it. I believe it's a dismissal. I believe it's a red card, and it would make people sound like robots, and people would think that was being done for the benefit because they're mic'd up. and they listen to that. And if not, then they would change. Referees, we are weird people. Anybody that tells you we're not is lying. As in, we would do talk in those ways when you're talking about decisions, because it's how you do. It's so you've got clarity and stuff. And I think people would think it was getting put on, and rather than that's how people talk. And I don't see how it would help the situation, because you're still going to have most of the time it's go have a look. I think that's how VAR it's going to be. I've looked at this. I think you need to have a look.
I think the whole talking technical terms, I don't think anyone would have issue with it. I think it's just having that understanding and why they've come to that decision. That's it. Whether the decision's right or wrong, I've got no issue with referees getting wrong decisions. It's going to happen. I don't care about that. I just want them to explain how they've got to that, so I can understand. So even if the reasoning why they've got to that point is wrong, I don't care. At least there's some rationale behind it. That's my point with it. So that's why I'd want to hear what they say. Exactly the same with cricket. So go on.
Sorry, Chris. The other bit to be cautious of as well is let's pretend I'm refereeing and you two are my assistants. Then we could have a view of what's happened. I could think it's a red card. You could think it's a red card, and the other one of you thinks it's not. Now, you imagine if this is World Cup final and you hear me going red card, you going red card, and somebody else going yellow card, play on, or yellow card or play on or whatever, then whatever happens, despite the fact that 2/3 of the people or whatever decision, it's right or it's wrong or whatever, the offended party is going to be like, well, what are you doing? Because you do disagree on stuff. I've heard it before. Someone thinks it's red, someone thinks it's yellow. And then you, to be fair, you're opening a can of worms. Because what if the VAR says that's a definite red and the ref goes, no, it's yellow, I'm sticking with what I said.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I think it was the Premier League that had a meeting with IFAB, and they were suggesting that the decisions were so the discussion itself wasn't broadcasted. It would be the final decision, whatever the final outcome would be, just so that fans could be explained to why, fans in the stadium specifically, because a lot of fans complain that all they see at times is just that it's offside. Well, offside's easy to explain, or red card or anything like that, why it wasn't a red card. So I do understand it. And I personally would prefer to hear the end outcome. I don't need to hear any kind of discussion on how they got to that decision, just what the final decision was, what the actual final decision was, speaking as someone who's actually been in the ground at the time. Just to move on, you mentioned earlier that you kind of distinguished yourself between a referee and a fan. I just want to know, do you watch games differently to what you would imagine, let's say, a typical fan would watch a game? Do you look out more for, so when I'm watching a game, I'll watch the game as a whole, and then I'll watch a centre midfielder. I'll keep my eye on a centre midfielder. Ty will likely do the same with the defensive side of things. Would you say that's the same for referees?
Yes, and yes, I do. I would watch a ref. I would watch a ref, watch what a ref's doing. In terms of, I'm terrible to watch football with if you support one of the teams that are playing. Yeah. Because something will happen and you'll go, why has the ref done that? And I'll go, because of this. And you stood there and you'll go, well, that's not there. And I go, no, he's done it because of this. Then this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's not because of this. And it does happen. And you go, yeah, you're right. So to be fair, I'm like real life VAR. A lot of people think we're just there to ruin the game. If Scarborough went bust in 2007, the original Scarborough, now the Scarborough Athletic. And if Scarborough hadn't have gone bust, I wouldn't be refereeing. I used to go home and away and it wasn't there. It's just circumstances have happened that's not the case.
I think you might know. Chris, did you you signed for Scarborough. You were signing Chris.
It was about 10 years ago they got in touch with me, but it was too much of a travel. So at that time I didn't drive, so there was no way I was traveling about an hour down the road and back, especially for the money that they were offering. Anyway, that's another story. So Darius, you mentioned about Clattenburg's movement, and as a typical fan, I think I speak for a lot of people, and we don't even think of that. It's quite an insight that you pay so much attention to actually a referee's movement. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? And is it something that you try to implement in your own game?
So Clattenburg, in terms of why he was so good, is his sprint was like, for a referee, was excellent. Like, I'm not saying he's Kylian Mbappe or anything like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of a referee, bear in mind that most referees are late 30s, 40s in the Premier League. They're maybe a little bit younger, certainly in the 30s. They've been refereeing a long time to get to the levels they're at, and they're chasing around lads who are a lot younger and a lot quicker than him. And Clattenburg was just excellent at his sprint, knowing when to sprint, and he'd just do it. He was excellent at it. And that's, to be fair, probably like you said about people not understanding refereeing, about what they do. Like, to be a good referee, you need to be in the right position and to give stuff. And probably the only time in a pitch really where I'm like, yes, like I've done that, is someone will say they were tackling the penalty area and they'll turn to where they think you should be, because that's where you are, and instead you've made that extra effort and you've got yourself into a better position where they know you've looked, you've seen everything that it is, and it's like no penalty. They look at you as if to go, you've done me there. And that's probably one way you're like, yes, like as in, you know, you've got that. It's same as a good advantage as well. A good advantage has got the same effect. There's obviously that famous video of Mike Dean wheeling away, celebrating at White Hart Lane. As a referee, when you give an advantage and there's a goal, you are patting yourself on the back, and as in it's where you've made a positive impact on the game. And like we spoke about Oliver's one at the weekend earlier on, it's not very often that's picked up. In this case, it was picked up by BBC Sport. I think it was, I read it on, but it's not always picked up on that what referees can do in terms of stuff like that.
Brilliant. So this time of the episode, we always have a question of the episode, or question of the day. And today's questions come from Chris, not because I don't know what the question is, but because Chris is.
I'm gonna give you my answer to the question. I'm gonna give you the question. I'm gonna give you my answer, what I think it is. I'm gonna put it to Ty, and then we're obviously gonna give it to our expert guest last. And then I want everybody to comment down below. So, question of the day is: what is the one rule that you would change in the game to make the game better as a whole? And I will preface that with an answer. What I would like to implement is when the ball goes out or any kind of stoppage, the clock just stops completely. So I don't know whether that would maybe implement, you'd work out an average on how long each game lasts. Maybe a game would be now 60 minutes instead of a full 90 minutes, just, to take out the time. I just cannot stand time wasting. And the amount of time that, I think it's in La Liga in particular where referees don't account for a full amount of stoppage time, and they don't account for the rolling around or anything like that. So for me, it would just abolish any kind of 90 minutes and then injury time. I think it would just be as soon as the ball goes out, the clock stops, and that includes when you shoot, and kind of like basketball to a sense. Ty?
Mine is, as I'm a defender, is this rule that's been brought about over the last few years, and we say, 20 years ago that'd have been a cracking tackle, and it's this rule about excessive force. I firmly believe if you win the ball cleanly, it's a good tackle. Too often I think I've seen, even in our level, and especially in the Premier League, when you go through and they follow through, and they'll say, I know, and I can see him wincing, and he's going to give me a refereeing answer after he said this. It'll be a cracking tackle, ball go through, ball man the lot. No booking. I'm like, fuck's sake, that's a cracking tackle. So that's the rule I'd like to get removed, just because I think it's a part of the game that it's going away, and everything seems to be a bit too technical with the game that's being played. We still need that part of the game involved, and a lot of people started playing around that era, and it's slowly dying a death.
Darius?
Mine would be, I said about offside being ridiculous length. It's too complex for me. I think Harry Kane, I think it was against Liverpool. I think you saw Harry Kane scored that goal, and it was like every man and his dog thought it was offside, but the law says it's not. If you're in an offside position, you're in an offside position. Who was it? I think it was City versus
Man City won it. It was the same thing where he's gone for it. And
same thing. As in, I think we've tried to get too clever with it, and it's got a bit too complex. But in fairness, after that one, they did look at it and go, do you know what, it should have been. It wasn't by law. They were right to do it by law, but no, that's stupid. And they've edited that one. Goals were getting ruled out for ridiculous stuff, for players not knowing the ball was there and hitting them. I think they're right to take that one out because that was, I think Man City had one ruled out where it hit Laporte about there, and you were like, nobody ever thought that was. As for your nonsense about tackles, man, player getting the ball and it not being a tackle, we're not in 1973 now. Getting the ball does not make it not a foul. As in, that honestly, like if I could stop players saying it, he got the ball, yeah, but he also put his leg in 4 bits too. Oh yeah, it didn't matter though, he got the ball. Got to disagree on
it's the whole excessive force bit, and I understand and we all know when someone's going out to hurt someone, but if the ball's there to be won, and it's, as a defender, you sometimes want that moment when the ball's there. It's kind of a 50-50, but it's probably 55-45 in your favour, and you're going to be able to get the ball, man, everything. It's going to be clean, and just not being able to do that. But yeah, no, I just want to, obviously this is, as always, we always try to keep it short, but it's not. This is probably about an hour long or however long it's been. Thank you, Darius, for taking time out your evening to join us on today's show. I just want to ask you a personal question around. You've obviously sort of progressed quite well in terms of the sort of refereeing pathway. What's your ultimate dream? Is it the Premier League, or is it just to get to? Because you're at National League now, as a fourth, and that's pretty good. So you're not far off sort of League Two. What's your moving forward? What's your goals and aspirations?
This, to be fair, anybody watching this will think I'm dodging the answer to the question. I've literally said since I started refereeing, I want to referee until I get to a level where I stand in the middle of a pitch and go, what on earth are you doing here? And to be fair, there's probably players, if players watch this, they might say you definitely found that long ago. But when I'm being a Borough fan, like I watched a lot of football it was conference back then. So watching that level, so getting to do fourth man on that was a big thing to me because that was where my club was. I'd like to go as high as I can. I wouldn't. I'm never going to make Premier League. If I make Premier League, someone show this video and I'll happily never ever in a million years am I ever going to make Premier League. I don't think. Not unless they need they have pro VAR by then and they've brought in a review system that's named after me. But I just want to go as high as I possibly can. As a player, I was dreadful. I feel really lucky to get to do the games that I get to do. It's always fun. We get our games out on about the 23rd of the month, and it's always fun looking at those games. COVID absolutely did me. I was supposed to have Man United Liverpool under 18s, and it got cancelled because of COVID. I was fuming. But yeah, as in, I just want, I would never have got there as a player and never got to do some of the stuff that I've got to be at and grounds I've got to be at and stuff. So I just want to go as high as I can, really, and then.
Yeah, that's a fair answer, and you're not dodging it. I think it's a really good answer as well. So, really, really important question. Have you enjoyed it?
I have, to be fair. I have. I'll wait until I watch it back and find out what stupid things I've said back. Last thing my wife said to me was the internet's forever. So I'll look forward to that last answer getting replayed to me several times during the season.
Anything from you, Chris, before we wrap it up?
No. Well, I'm looking to arrange a couple of hours with him after this to go over our manifesto, our cricket / new VAR implementation. So yeah, no, it's been very interesting as always with a lot of our guests. It's been very insightful, and the reason why they all rumble on, the episodes rumble on so long, is because it is so interesting. And once again, one of your guests has not let us down. So. It's absolutely brilliant. Cheers, Darius.
Cheers, Darius. Thanks for helping us out. For everyone else, as we always say, if you've got this far, you might as well like and subscribe because you obviously like what we're talking about. And we'll see you next time. See you guys.
See you later, guys.